Good evening. I'd like to call order the workshop of January 28th, 2019. First item on the agenda tonight is regarding a citizen petition to amend Chapter 60, Special Exemption Use Regulations, with Ms. Audrey Knight presenting. Good evening, Ms. Knight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So before you, we have a petition. Whoops, that's not the one. Sorry about that. Hello. What complicates this thing? Okay, it's got to be here somewhere. Aha. I wanted to put this in PowerPoint format primarily because of the text involved. This is a text amendment to the AG zone in special exception zone that was petitioned by the Taylor Pond Association in October. It was heard by the Planning Board in December and discussed at length. There was a 90-minute hearing. I believe many of you were present for that public hearing. And at the conclusion of that, the Planning Board recommended denial of the petitioner's text. And the text is specific to special exception uses number 17, which was originally added to the zoning ordinance in 2017. They want to specifically address assembly maintenance of equipment in the Taylor Pond and Lake Auburn watershed districts. They want to add this item, which is D, specifically stating that industrial uses, including manufacture, assembly, and maintenance of recreational or agricultural equipment, be prohibited in the watershed areas surrounding Lake Auburn and Taylor Pond. That is the text amendment that was proposed before the Planning Board and is before you tonight for discussion. As you know, the Planning Board did recommend denial. The discussion centered around the nature of special exceptions, that conditions of approval are specifically garnered towards mitigating any negative impacts, that environmental controls such as phosphorus loading would also be controlled through DEP. There was discussion around the desire to have different types of uses available in the ag zone, and that this text as presented was not going to work for the Planning Board. They did vote 7-0, and it's before you now to move forward in the process. The next steps from tonight, our workshop, first reading potentially would be February the 4th, with a second reading potentially for the 25th.
Thank you. Is there any questions of Ms. Knight from the council? Councilor Titus?
So does that mean that the Planning Board denied it, but you're asking us to overturn their denial?
No. Essentially, the way the public process works is the petitioners applied to the City of Auburn, and the first step is to run through the Planning Board. Okay. The Planning Board had their deliberations and are making their recommendation to you. You, as a City Council, can deliberate the same text and make your own determinations.
Oh, I see. So we can either just carry it forward. So we have to vote or decide to carry it forward to the next step or not.
Yes. Correct.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to, when this text amendment was first put in, the change in the ordinance, before that, like a tractor company that sold tractors, assembled farm tractors, could still operate in an ag zone. This was just expanding that to recreational type businesses that do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, the item, this is 17. If we go back to the original special exception, this basically includes assembly, sale, research and development, distribution, instruction, training, demonstration, or maintenance of recreational or agricultural equipment.
And before it said just agricultural, but this new one added recreational to that.
Are you talking about the 2017
yes.
original amendment? I believe this added not just recreational. I think it added some other components.
Well, it did. Of course, we were talking about like hotels that could be built in certain areas as well. I think it was a little bit, but as far as this, you know, they're honing in on this, the business that was associated with Lost Valley, because they were selling recreational equipment for grooming, and so they wanted that to be in the same idea as a farm equipment facility that didn't manufacture, but rather assembled and repaired and maintained.
Correct.
Farm equipment.
Correct.
So we were told pretty much that it was not going to be going overstepping that bound, as far as it wouldn't be able to do more than what the farm equipment company could do. It just expanded it to farm equipment and recreational equipment.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
I believe that's true.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments from the council at this point?
Yes, I would like to see some of the reasons why the planning board denied the change or bumping it up to us. I'm sure I listened to a lot of what they had to say, and I'm sure they must have documented something or someone did somewhere. I'd like to see some of that so that I can at least, you know, digest that. When we passed this back in, whatever you said what the date was, 17, 16, whenever.
Yeah.
I believe the council at the time really thought it was a great idea. I still think it's a good idea in a lot of cases. Maybe some people thought it was going to get out of hand, or maybe they still think it is. I think it is worded correctly, and I don't think it will get out of hand if the rules are enforced correctly.
Well, to address two of your questions, one, I did include the minutes from the public hearing, so there are listed a series of comments. I would say in general, there was a lot of discussion around the reasons why the planning board supported the 2017 edition, and some of them have to do with exactly what you said, expanding opportunities for creative enterprises around ag and recreation. There was discussion around the size of the project. I believe it was 20,000 square feet under roof, as well as potentially 2 acres of yard equipment. I believe that was part of the discussion around the look and feel, potentially being more industrial in nature. There was discussion around maintenance and maintenance of tractor equipment being essentially a mainstay of the agricultural community, so it was thoroughly appropriate. We went around environmental issues, particularly phosphorus loading and the causes of phosphorus loading in both of those watersheds, looking for residential as well as other impacts. There was concern about conditions of approval that the planning board places on a project, and the ability of staff to actually make sure those conditions of approval are implemented, particularly over a number of years. If you suggest potentially monitoring water quality over time, that takes effort and money. Who's going to monitor that? Who's going to staff it? There was discussion around making the Taylor Pond overlay district actually include the watershed within the city boundaries, as opposed to just around the lake, similar to what's done with the Lake Auburn watershed. In the end, the planning board felt that the text, the way it stands, is reflective of an expanded opportunities, and they felt that the special exception conditions of approval and the environmental protections could offset some of the environmental concerns that the Taylor Pond Association had in bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to, wrap this up. Is there any other questions, though, Les?
Mr. Mayor, are we going to go to the workshop, but this is just informational? Are we going?
This is just
to a workshop?
informational?
Okay.
So it has to come, there's one last question I was going to have of Ms. Knight. Is there a mechanism in place for the petitioners to withdraw this ordinance from council review, or does it automatically have to go through to the council?
So if they wanted to withdraw it, they would essentially need to get the petitioners who signed the petition to re-sign a petition acknowledging the withdrawal.
It's going to go to
So it's going to come to meeting. Councilor Hayes?
I guess procedure-wise, I think that's a good question. You know, possibly the petitioners could withdraw, because I think, you know, I signed the petition, but I guess as I've actually written in an email, you know, I felt myself negligent in not reading it and maybe working with the others to, you know, word it differently. And I guess, you know, I thought maybe through the process that it would be kind of fleshed out and actually recognized as different levels of industrial activity and so forth. And some is appropriate, some may not be. And I think with respect to the particular project, it certainly did move elsewhere, and I think appropriately so. But I think that, you know, again, I fault myself. I'd rather have seen different language, and if it could be withdrawn, but it would have to go then back through a similar procedure if there was different wording then presented.
Councilor Lasagna?
Just a quick question, in reviewing this, would this affect a place like Tabor's? Recreational assembly and maintenance of recreational or agricultural equipment, somebody had questioned that.
I'm sorry, I'm still new to
she's
Auburn,
new.
and I'm not
In
quite
other
sure.
I'll sum it up. Watershed, like real watershed, changing the oil in their tractors
Oh, yeah.
in a maintenance as
Yeah.
defined by this.
And this is a really good question, and it came up as an item for discussion. What's the threshold for a home-based business or a farm doing, you know, their regular work? And it does become a magnitude issue. Clearly, if you're setting up shop to run changing oil for all sorts of places, it starts to become more of an industrial type business. And when we require that special exception even in the general business zone for that kind of repair of oil and changing all that stuff. So we ran into this, at what point does it go from just a simple maintenance of your own equipment to a more industrial, and you'll know it when you see it.
Right. Right, and I think this is in response to if there's the withdrawal of the petition, some language considering specific activity that is currently going on. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In a petition process, I know when you do a citizens initiative, the legislature has to either enact it as is, or it can send out a competing measure. Given we're not the legislature, if there is any grain of something that a council or councilors would like to see wordsmiths changed, we could discuss it. And if the vote is in favor of those changes, the council, in its wisdom and power, can send it back to the planning board for reconsideration versus just totally telling the petitioners their work is all in vain.
Well, thank you very much. I think we got something for the council to think about, and we'll obviously have more discussion on this when it comes before council. Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a budget presentation by Jill Eastman and Peter Creighton.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Jill and I will be presenting this first glance at the FY20 budget. We're not getting into any numbers at this point. We have asked the department directors for their CIP requests and also their operating requests, and Jill is starting that process to review them. In February, I will be meeting along with my budget team with department directors to review their budget requests for CIP and operational items. We thought we'd start with the property valuation for the city of Auburn. Since I've been here, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact there's not much growth going on. Well, as you'll see from this chart, there in fact has been quite a bit of growth since 2014. Also, before I go too much further, I want to thank Liz Allen, who's the communications manager in the city manager's office, communications and compliance manager, for putting this together with the involvement of Phil and Jill. This has been, I think, very helpful for this evening. It shows that property valuation has grown by $112 million since 2014. Raise your hand if you thought that would have happened over the last 5 years. Anybody? Okay, there's one counselor. You believe. You believed, okay. Now, interestingly, there are some factors that impact evaluation. The homestead exemption, the personal property depreciation, the Betty program, business equipment tax exemption, which Jill knows very well, impact the property valuation growth, as you will see. This slide shows how the property valuation has been impacted to the extent that it actually has gone down, as you can see, because of the exemptions, which is done through the Maine State Legislature. This slide shows the value without the exemptions. As I showed at the beginning, as we showed on the first series of slides, valuation grew to $2.58 billion without the exemptions. After the exemptions, the value is $1.96 billion. That's quite a drop. So the exemptions are outpacing the new growth. We're not unique among municipalities in Maine with that. We haven't done a study to see what other municipalities are doing in terms of their growth and how the exemptions are impacting them. But the exemptions have grown for us by $132 million from 2014 to 2018. That's a problem in terms of what we're trying to do with our budget. This slide shows, if you look at the colors, value after exemptions, the value after reimbursements. So with the reimbursements that we receive, that has helped, but it still doesn't cover what we need in order to have the real growth that we'd like to have. At this point, I'm going to ask Jill to comment on this particular slide. There are a lot of numbers here, but I think this is an important slide to see how the reimbursements have affected taxable value.
As you can see by this slide, in 2014, the city received a reimbursement on the homestead and Betty of $2.1 million, and in 2018, we received $3.8 million. The homestead exemption started at $10,000 and is now $20,000. So, and we're being reimbursed, we started out being reimbursed at 50%, and we're now being reimbursed at 62.5%. But, so, we have lost almost 40% of our value due to that $20,000 per homestead exemption. And the taxable value of that we have not gotten reimbursed is $457 million. We're getting reimbursed $161.8 million and not getting reimbursed $457 million.
When you say, just a point of clarification, not being reimbursed, it's not that the state should be cutting us a check for $457 million, but it's a taxable valuation on $457
Right,
In other
that's the valuation
rate on
amount that
457.
we've lost,
that we've lost.
Right.
Not to be confused with dollars in the bank.
of tax dollars. We do get reimbursed, I think we're at about 57% on the Betty now. Because we have more personal property, we've reached a threshold. It was 50%, we've gone over the threshold and we get it's about 57% now on the Betty reimbursement, which is personal property taxes after a certain date that is no longer taxable by the city. They file, the people, like, for example, Tam Brands, if they were to put in a machine today that cost $60 million, it would not go as valuation to the city of Auburn, but we would get reimbursed about 50% of the taxes we would have collected by the state.
Thank you, Jill. I also want to mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't, the assessing office, Joe in particular, in assessing, provided us with the numbers to put this together. With Jill's input and involvement, wouldn't be able to do this without their assistance. So, are there any questions at this point in terms of the property valuation, how the exemptions and reimbursements affect what we're doing?
Councilor Tadas?
Yeah, real quick, I'd like to have a copy. I know this is not in our packet, these last couple of slides. I think that's fabulous stuff, and I appreciate the work. Fabulous stuff to look at, just like to mull it over at another time, too.
You're welcome. This slide got added today when we were looking at it more closely, and Jill helped create this slide, so.
Now, would it possibly be, the exemptions, does that include also TIFs that's in that exemptions?
No, it doesn't.
The only thing this includes is Betty, Homestead, and Veterans exemptions. Those are our three largest exemptions.
And our veteran exemptions.
TIF isn't really an exemption.
And our veteran exemptions are like just not even a couple points, correct?
Yeah.
Very, very small, isn't it?
They're
if I remember
small.
correctly?
Yeah, they're like $6,000. It's $6,000 to the individual.
And the homestead exemption has risen so much because it was doubled? Or is there any other reason that it's risen?
It's an act of the legislature.
The state, it started at 10,000, then they raised it to 15,000, and now it's 20,000.
They only paid 62% of that back to us, so we absorb
Yes.
38% of the homestead exemption.
And there is talk about this session raising that as a way of giving property tax relief by up to $30,000, I believe, which then would hurt property taxes collected by the municipalities, which would force an increase in mill rate. So you can see where it's a very circular argument.
Absolutely. That's what goes back.
Phil, did you want to say something? You look like you did. No? Okay. All right.
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Counselor.
How can we fix this with such a big, I guess, not reimbursed? What is it we can do to fix that?
That's a great question. This is a long-term issue. You've heard me talk about this before. The city's in the position that it's in after many, many, many years. It's not going to be solved overnight. It's not going to be solved in 1 year or 2 years. It's going to take time. I think we're going to have to work with the legislature and our local legislative delegation. And I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit in a few slides from now on ways that we can try to remedy this through increased municipal revenue sharing. That would certainly help. And also talking with legislators about the impact of these exemptions on our property valuation.
Mr. Manager, does this also suggest that we don't, commercial real estate is more promising than residential real estate?
I'd love to have it all. I'd like to see.
The homestead exemption is only applied to residential?
Yes, that's correct. But I'd like to, we want to see residential development as well as business development, right?
It'd be interesting to your point, and I asked the same question earlier. You know, with residential home, your exemption's at $20,000. It's predictable. It's there. You can budget for it. With the Betty and reimbursements is a very big variable. And business equipment usually is the highest taxed or potential tax that a business will pay, especially when you're looking at a Procter & Gamble or large or mid-sized manufacturing. And it is a variable depending upon depreciation. So it's an interesting comparison, dollar for dollar, between a residential home and a business on what is the greatest asset to our tax base directly, without looking at any multipliers. Might be something to look at over the next couple of months. And there's no, I think, right answer that's applicable 100% of the time, but it might, just to give us a little bit of a ballpark.
If you're okay, I'll move on. So the next few slides are on building a budget. Probably nothing new to you. Many of you, if not all of you, have been through budget processes before. In terms of putting our budget together, we have several pieces that need to fit together. Personnel costs is certainly a big factor. That's not unique to the city of Auburn. Debt service, transfer to TIF. TIFs were asked about earlier. County tax, utilities, joint services from the joint agencies that we work with, solid waste disposal, workers' comp, emergency reserve, tax surcharge, other costs. These are the things that go into building this budget. It's not a simple thing, as you know.
Real quick, Mr. Manager, is this a percentage of the budget, or, because I've seen county tax 5.6%, that's a 5 or 6% of our,
No, that was what their increase was this year.
that was the levy, which is a percentage of our,
Oh, it is a percentage of
so
the
this is a
total?
total percentage of the budget
Okay.
currently.
Percentage of the municipal budget.
Okay. And this personnel probably doesn't include all benefits and all that kind of stuff, that's just,
I would think it does.
does that?
It does.
All,
It does.
okay.
It does. Then we have other potential budget drivers. Those who are golfers in the room, you appreciate the golfer there. Some of the other factors are the compensation study that we've talked about before on the employees. We have to be able to be competitive with other municipalities, similar organizations to us. We have done a compensation study, as you know, and there are some recommendations on making some adjustments for employees because their wages are beneath where they should be. School department has an impact, obviously, on education. We know that. Municipal revenue sharing, on the positive side, if we can increase municipal revenue sharing, which there's discussion about. Right now, we're getting around $1.6 million annually in municipal revenue sharing that we've budgeted. This would obviously help us. We're about 40% of full funding on municipal revenue sharing at the state level. If we can increase that, that'll help us in terms of what we're trying to do. Local option sales tax we've talked about before. That certainly could be beneficial to the city of Auburn. We don't know what will happen on that at this point in time. It could go down several different tracks, but with what the Maine Municipal Association is looking at for a 1 cent sales tax increase, you're looking at over $7 million annually to the city of Auburn. Joint services, that certainly impacts what we're trying to do in terms of the agencies that we work with, whether you're talking about the Lewis and Auburn Transit Committee or whether you're talking about 911, some of the other agencies that we work with, and then the strategic plan implementation process that we're going through. There may be some things that come out of that that could have an impact on the FY20 budget. We are going to be looking at items that have a greater return on investment, but that's not always what is most important when you're looking at different initiatives that you want to take on. So those discussions are ongoing right now. You'll hear a report later on at the meeting under my report on where we are with the strategic planning process. I think we're making good progress in terms of the discussions that are taking place. In terms of the general budget timeline, we are trying to move that process up as compared to what we've done in the past as a city. As I mentioned before, CIP department requests have been submitted. Department operating budget requests are due by the end of January. Then there will be meetings with the department directors in February. We're looking at a draft CIP presentation in March with the draft manager's budget in March, which is earlier than what we've done in the past, with the presentation of the budget in April. We do have a work plan, as you know, which really ties it all together in terms of what we're trying to do. The city is very innovative in a lot of ways, and collaborative. I think excellence is one of our themes as an organization that we're striving towards. We're already doing that in many ways. The accreditation of the Public Works Department, the accreditation of the Police Department, I think are good examples of that. The Fire Department is having conversations about that. And maybe what we're talking about doing is being more creative in terms of our problem solving. Sharing an electrician with the school department, for example, is something we did in this budget for FY19, which I think was a good collaborative initiative by both the city and the school department. Public Works, the field preps that are going on for the school right now is another example. We are trying to do more with less. Recreation and sports tourism, and what we've done with those three departments, bringing together the Norway Savings Bank arena as well as the recreation department and the turf facility into one department with one director, Mark Goslin as the director of recreation and tourism, I think is a good step. We've got a good group of people who work in that department who are capable, hardworking, dedicated, who add a lot to what we're trying to do as a city. Strategic planning I spoke about before. We're already starting to see ideas percolate that I think will be helpful to the city. We utilize our leadership team meetings, which are meetings of the department directors and other staff who are key to the organization as a way to talk about things that we're doing as a city, what we can improve on and continually improve. I think trying to utilize those meetings to look at more ways we can be innovative and collaborative is a good step, and it's something that we are working towards, and I'm excited about it. Some other examples of the innovation are what we're doing with GIS, the Geographic Information System we have, which I think is really very important to the city as we move forward. Phil was in a conversation this morning, the Assistant City Manager, Phil Kroll, on data inventory on park benches. So we have the data on all the park benches in the city and the condition of the park benches. So when we have park benches that need to be replaced, we are in a position to be able to replace those. There's no guessing. Same thing with customers of the arena. Mark Goslin is talking about ways that we can capture more data and more information on customers to the arena so that we can improve what we're doing with customers trying to make the arena more successful in the future. So we are working hard to have Auburn be one of the best small cities in America. It's a mountain to climb, and we're all climbing it together, and we're not going to climb it in 1 year or 2 years. It's going to take some time to do that, but I think that we are taking the steps that are necessary as a team. We are working together with your support to try and accomplish what needs to be done. Thank you very much. We're
Thank you
happy
very
to
much,
answer
Mr.
any
Manager. I'd like
questions.
yes, open up to the council. Are there any questions right now? Councilor Lasagna.
Thank you, and this is extremely helpful having it now, and the format of it is extremely helpful as well. I appreciate the work that everybody's done. And I wonder, you mentioned the strategic plan, and I hope that as this moves forward to the final submission, that the strategic plan is sort of seeded throughout this. It may be specific, or it may just be referring to that, because I think that's one of the things that I know the city staff is looking forward to, having that be a part of the guiding principles for what they do. And then also, just in looking at it pretty briefly, there may be some overlapping or goals or that can be aligned among departments, and it might be nice to see those as well, how they inform each other so that the synergies that can be created between the departments, because people have done a lot of good thinking here on their goals, and maybe just looking at them collectively at some point would be helpful.
That's a great point, Counselor. That there's a lot of synergy taking place already. We have departments getting together, working on different issues and problems and challenges and opportunities that we face as a city.
Yep.
Any other questions? I mean, we're just in the beginning phases, and I would like to thank the manager and staff, too, for kind of ramping this up a little bit quicker than last year, which is great. I think a little bit more time is definitely going to make us feel good about this process. Is there any other not goals, I'm sorry, just read that in the paper. Any other comments or questions from the council at this time regarding the process, timeline, timeframe? Oh, nothing? Okay. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I appreciate that. Okay, moving along. Chris Bennett, Chestnut Street project engineer. Chris, it's all you. Just as a reminder, this is a project that first came to council last year about a street closure, so we're revisiting that. Assistant City Manager Kroll will be here as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll just give a brief update. If you remember our last presentation on Chestnut Street, the recommendation was to actually close Chestnut Street, where we have, if those aren't familiar with Chestnut Street, it does divide two parks. So we have a park on one side of Chestnut Street, Pal Center, and the Chestnut Street Park on the opposite side. Concerns with cut-through traffic, concerns with speeding on that short cut-through road. Recommendation was to close. After that presentation, we heard a lot from you all, also from residents regarding not closing Chestnut Street. And so the team went back to the drawing board, still looking at a way to calm the speeds in that area, make it safer for those who utilize those two parks. Chris will go over the plan with you.
Yeah, I don't see the plan on the, is there any specific location?
Let me see. Bill, I'll do it.
It should be on the desktop, but I don't see it. Oh, is it? You go down from here?
Scroll down.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wait, seriously?
It's okay. It's just a few little bit further. As Chris is looking for that, you have the packets in front of you, but what you'll see is couple additions with that project was, again, not closing it, but narrowing it so that we could calm the traffic that's going through there. Part of that is putting up curbing. If you go through there now, there's a lot of parking that's right in front of the Pal Center that makes it look like it's, it could be a 30-foot road as you're driving through there. By eliminating that parking in the front, putting curbing in, a sidewalk, and then providing the additional spaces on the side. So,
sorry about that. Yes, if you're driving down Chestnut right now, let's say in this direction, there's a open space here for the parking, and it gives a very, it doesn't close it off to make it look like you should slow down. So it kind of welcomes the speeders, and we don't want that around there at all. We don't want it anywhere. So we would make it 23 feet curb to curb, sidewalks with the fencing for the Pal Center with one gate, so it would be an entrance into that area through this entrance of the building, and we would put a gate up. We will find out once we get further along where that will be. So we would be eliminating parking in this location and adding it to this connector. So we'd be making a roadway, but it'd be more of an aisle for parking, and add 17 spaces. Along, we would have to put in some storm drain to collect all that storm water. But we would be adding the speed table and a raised crosswalk where there already is a path for crossing. You'd see these over on Lake Auburn Ave. It's worked very well. And make a few things a little more safe while we're there as well. There's some issues with this entrance. There's concrete blocks that are heaving and everything, so we would fix that at the same time. There's some issues back here with pooling and everything, so we will be looking into that and try to pave it and grade it in a way that'll be much better for the Powell Center. And I guess if there's any feedback or questions.
Thank you very much. Let me open it up to the councilors. We had a chance to review everything. Councilor Lasagna, thoughts?
Thank you. I really appreciate the changes that you've made on this. I think people in the community who were concerned about closing the street, I think this is a great option. In terms of cost, you know, I think it was $135,000 that was set aside for the original closure. How does this sort of come in?
So, should have been in the packet. The estimate.
Is it? Oh.
162.7.
Be about 162 is what we're
we're
looking at.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this is CDBG funds at this point?
Some of it.
All of it.
All of it's CDBG?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do you need any action at this point, or is this going to come in front of council in the near future for a vote? What's the protocol going
I would
forward?
just go back when Councilor Titus mentioned CDBG funds and all of it. So 135,000 was allocated. If you recall, at our last meeting, Director Chamings talked about transferring 50,000 out of that for a project that's coming up. What would then go back to the CAC and then back before the council would be to reallocate that 50,000 back to the project in the next year's funding, plus the additional funding that's needed for the full project.
So after
All
we get the
CDBG, it's all in the target area, it's all within that project plan, so.
When's construction, when you're anticipating starting on this?
We would start the project, we've been having some conversations about it, but we feel in that area it's probably best, and now that we're not hitting one of the windows, some of the work can begin once it goes out to bid, after it comes back, but most of the project to be during the summer.
Summer, okay. Is there any other questions from the council? No? Great, thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry, Councilor Walker.
Did you say no parking in front of the building?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
That fenced-in area would be a paved area, it would be 4 squares, hopscotch, those things, with a fencing around it so the students wouldn't actually come out onto the road or be any chance of them getting to the road access.
One other question, why wouldn't you take in the little playground that's on the side of the building with that at the same time, so that they actually could come in and out of your building and get to that? You know what I mean?
They can currently, there's the side door where they access to the playground. And then, if I could use that mouse real quick. So we have a back door right here that accesses out to the playground. And then this walkway will continue. And what Chris was talking about, putting another gate, most likely there'll be a gate right here. So that way they'll still have access to the playground or get access out to come down into the gully.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have an executive session to discuss an economic development matter pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405, 6C. Do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion from Councilor Rosani. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Second.
And a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor?
Gary. Councilor Gary.
Something's changed with this audio. I'm going to blame it on that. Counselor Gary, then. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? None. We are now in executive session by a vote of 7-0. Seriously, something's going on with the speakers.
No, it was, I said it.
I knew you said it.
Whoops, sorry. No, you're okay. Better take my little write-up. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good improvement.
Sidewalk will make all the difference in the world on that side.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And that keeps it narrow.
yeah.
Well, you really only need, what, 11-foot lanes? 12-foot
I'll find it, don't worry.
I don't carry a lot of money, you know?
mayor's really involved yet? Okay.
I buried it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
so that was my fault.
yeah, well, you know, I was gonna check, because I'm like,
No,
I'm
no,
pretty
I
sure.
you did. I even flagged it.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah,
that-
well, you know, sometimes we get bombarded with so many emails and, you
Yeah.
know, yeah,
It was just a case of
yeah.
excrement.
It didn't take long, though, for you to find, for you to get it.
Declare the city council out of executive session. We'll now stand a break until 7 o'clock.
Wow, we never get.
Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. I'll now call to order this meeting of January 28th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to move on to consent items, and at this time there are no consent items on the agenda, so we're going to move on to minutes. We have the minutes for the January 7th, 2019 regular council meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? None being, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 7th, 2019 regular city council meeting.
Motion to approve.
Accept.
I have a motion by Councilor Walker and a second by Councilor Fournier. Show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? None being, minutes are approved 7-0. Next, we have the minutes of the January 23rd, 2019 special council meeting. Are there any corrections? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 23rd.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Walker and a second from Councilor Fournier. By a show of hands, all those in favor? Vote 7-0, the minutes are approved. Now on to communications, presentations, and recognition. That leads off with me. Good evening, Auburn. It's my honor to appear before you on this very special occasion. I'm proud to bring back a long-forgotten tradition here in Auburn, the State of the City Address. Now, some of you might be wondering, why would the mayor of Auburn deliver a State of the City Address? Rest assured, I don't think I'm the president or governor, but 1 year into my service as your mayor, I do think it's meaningful and critically important to share what I view as our greatest successes, as well as some of our challenges and opportunities we are facing. In 1869, our founders realized how special our city was and the growing influence it could have throughout the state and region. In those early days, they understood how vitally important it was to deliver a seminal address outlining success and strengths, as well as lessons learned from failure. They also celebrated residents who made a significant contribution to the city and outlined smart new policies and initiatives, laying the groundwork for future success of our municipality. Over the years, something happened that changed the way we think of ourselves and our future. I think of it as a gloom of sorts, one that unfortunately has lasted several generations. Somewhere along the way, we stopped thinking of the future and believing in ourselves and our community. We lost sight of our desire to leave a positive legacy and settled for squabbling over small issues that by their very nature has held us back from realizing our true potential. I am pleased and proud to report that those days are well behind us. Auburn is thriving, pride in our community is strong, and the state of the city is one of promise and opportunity. In the past year, we have moved past animosity between council and staff, conflict between elected officials and quasi-municipal and non-governmental organizations. We tackled a tough budget and made decisions supporting growth within our city, while keeping property tax increases in line with the rate of inflation. We have left behind the bitter merger debate, and we are entering our sesquicentennial year with a renewed sense of pride in our community and optimism for the future. When I think of 2018, I can't help but think of the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We are stronger, of that I'm certain. I would like to thank the members of our City Council for the work they do each day in service to this community. While we might not agree on every issue, we always come together and work hard to help focus on the future of our city and the people who live here. One notable exception is Councilor Gary and Councilor Walker. They're serving as our co-chairs of my ad hoc committee on age-friendly community. Working side by side and with community partners, these councilors have energized our community, created new programming, helped Auburn become an AARP age-friendly city, and most recently have spearheaded our soon-to-be constructed Auburn Senior Center. This is just one example of the heartfelt service, dedication, and commitment of your Auburn City Councilors. Each one of these people cares deeply with the city and work tirelessly on your behalf. So please, help me thank them all. I would also like to thank City Manager Creighton and his dedicated staff who in the past year have responsibly focused time and resources to invest in our future. You won't find a more loyal, committed, energetic team of people. In fact, they call themselves Team Auburn, which just demonstrates how focused they are on the success and well-being of our city. I would also like to recognize Jody Durisco, who might not be here tonight, Jody DeRisco is the manager's executive assistant for taking the lead and doing the hard work needed to move tax-acquired properties to sale. This important work allows languishing properties to be rehabilitated and raises the quality of our neighborhoods. I encourage staff to continue this important work. Encouraging developers to build market-rate housing and bring commercial development to our city makes us all stronger. I'd also like to commend and thank the incredible team of residents and staff led by Clifton Grime, who are in the midst of our strategic planning process. These people are working to enhance our quality of life and help grow our city. I have attended these meetings, and these folks love Auburn. They have the energy and optimism, and they're focused and committed on this process. As well as they finish this important work, I encourage them to develop a well-thought-out, financially responsible, creative, and prioritized roadmap that the council and staff can use daily to make Auburn the best small city in all of New England. Here in Auburn, we have a robust team of elected officials, staff, and hundreds of communities volunteers from all walks of life. None of what we'll accomplish in the future will be possible without their hard work and perseverance. On that note, let's take a moment to recognize what they have to work with. A city that is strategically located with beautiful, clean air, road and rail access to the rest of Maine and the world. We have a city with pristine natural resources, which provide us the unique ability to have a vibrant urban core with beautiful natural vistas and countless recreational opportunities. Auburn is a city with potential that is still only dreamed of.
Yeah.
Friends, as we look forward to 2019 and beyond, we need to rally around a mission, one that will guide us in our decisions, that will build Auburn for the next 150 years. A mission of growth through opportunity, for providing the opportunity for people to build their lives, raise their families, and their financial success. Growth will be the end result. And this will benefit all of us for generations to come. Now, why should we want growth? Well, quite simply, because with growth comes prosperity. Not just for a select few, but for the entire community, through meaningful property tax relief and increased recreation and cultural opportunities. We must embrace growth and what it means to our city now and in the future. We can't shy away from the challenge. Policy decisions, no matter how trivial they might seem today, can have a long-lasting impact. I believe that perception is just as important as policy, though. How we look at our city and how others view us truly does matter.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
An effective marketing campaign can change not only how we look at ourselves, but how the world looks at us. Just look at our sesquicentennial celebration that we kicked off on New Year's Eve. We had an epic event built through an impactful TV and web marketing campaign. Now, both these initiatives have been met with almost universal praise. People from across Maine are now looking at Auburn with interest and sometimes envy. I want to recognize Liz Allen, Communications and Compliance Director. I think she's the first one in Maine, by the way. Liz is truly our municipality's greatest communications rock. And what we have accomplished is largely due to her hard work and imagination.
Yes.
I feel strongly that we must continue this work. It's going to lead to more people moving to our city and our businesses expanding or locating here. It's as simple. A great brand is a valuable asset. When combined with exceptional mindful city planning, such as a strong strategic plan, great marketing can help a city attract everything from tourists to our investors. It can also boost our residents' pride. I'm going to challenge our business community. We have some great organizations that I'd like them to lead, such as the Auburn Business Association and the Auburn Business Development Corporation, to help fund a campaign that will highlight Auburn. I further propose that the city manager allocate $25,000 in matching funds for this purpose as well. This private-public partnership is another way that Auburn can position our community for success. To make effective use of these marketing dollars, and in order to give the best possible return on investment, I'm going to ask that the council give direction to the city manager to create a true communications department, one that is focused on continuing to grow what Ms. Allen and others have pioneered. The efforts of such a team will no doubt have a regional impact, because we all know when we work together, we all rise. Another of our most critical priorities is to finish the work started in 2017. Council, you'll soon receive a modernization of the Agriculture and Resource Protection Ordinance, first originated in 1965. You're going to see a well-thought-out ordinance that encourages small and large-scale agricultural growth while protecting green space and our rural appeal. With your adoption of this ordinance, we should see a sustainable growth in farm-related activities, younger farmers working the land and adding to our community, and financial security to more established farmers who have worked their land their entire lives and wish to pass along their tradition to a new generation. With this ordinance, we will bring fairness back to the entire city of Auburn. You'll hear the voice of opposition who advocate for maintaining the status quo and the failing policy of the last 55 years. I urge you to rise above the noise. Remember, when we are not moving forward, we're actually taking steps backward. Be thoughtful in your deliberation. Remember that as leaders, you must represent what is best for the entire city of Auburn. As we tackle what I see as unfair practices in our rural areas, we must also recognize the need for a strong urban core. Wow. We have one of the most beautiful downtowns in Maine. Its potential for growth is equally impressive. We need to implement policy that encourages practical development. We have an incredible downtown historic area. I'd like to start there. From Main Street to Spring, from Court to Academy, let's help local property owners rehabilitate distressed properties. Let's improve the aesthetics of our older housing stock and focus on turning vacant lots into desirable market rate housing. And let's do this through wise application of effort, both volunteer and staff, as well as our local and federal community development grant funding. Our future success is as tied to our downtown as our past was. I truly believe that the future of Auburn lies in how people view our commitment to education. It's not enough to just put together four walls and a roof and call it a school. We must design and build a first-rate facility, staffed with the best teachers, using the best curriculum, and offering the most opportunities for our youth possible. We are poised to make a decision on a new high school, one that will not just educate future generations, but serve as a hub of education, sports, and culture. If done correctly and with an eye to the future, the results will enhance our ability to grow our city in ways we cannot even imagine. Yes, this will take financial investment, but it will also take the ability for all residents to believe in a brighter future. While we deserve the best, we also know it comes with the reality of cost. Today, I call on the school committee to take a hard look at current operational expenses and consider consolidation of certain services and departments internally or with existing city departments. The reality is that residents will not accept a new high school with the entire local cost shouldered by the taxpayer. Nor should they. We must all do our share to help offset the costs. While we need to embrace excellence, we must also embrace reality and work towards a shared funding solution. No matter how we grow, unless we control spending, we'll truly never evolve. We must conserve our limited resources and apply them to the best possible uses in ways that will generate the best possible return for our current and future residents. This may be hard, but it's important work. It's important to look not just as a singular line item expenditure, but rather the way we do business. That puts the most burden on the taxpayer. It feels good to add more parks and more programs, more events, more government services, so on. But is it worth it? I suggest we embrace a policy of quality over quantity. Let's start by focusing on how city can support community-driven events. Let government be the facilitator versus the creator. By that I mean let's ensure that our residents have the opportunity to create and to lead. This will start us on the road of quality over quantity. Residents, if we're going to keep moving forward, we need you to be more involved than ever before. Do you have an idea of beautifying your neighborhood? Let us know. Do you have a pothole that's dangerous? I'm sure you do. Go to our website and report it. See a new business open? Stop in and say hi. Try buying something as well, or at least looking it over a little. Want to create a neighborhood event? Give us a call so we can support your efforts. I challenge you to be the leaders, be the spark, and leave Auburn better than you found it. After all, we're a city of connections. I dare say we just might be the most connected city in New England. We connect with each other through our neighborhoods, coffee houses, recreation, diners, breweries. We connect with nature through our trail systems, lakes, and rivers. We connect our industry with the world through our intermodal facility, airport, interstate access, and citywide broadband internet. And we feel the effects of connection through tragedy and how we come together to help one another in time of need. We connect with each other when we celebrate greatness in individuals and to encourage success in everything we do. By utilizing these connections, I have no doubt that we will be the greatest small city in New England and we'll be well positioned for another 150 years of success. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to serve the community that I love. I look forward to working with you all over the next year to truly live up to our motto, no backward steps. Thank you. Well, Liz locked it, so I wouldn't move it around. There you go.
Just a couple. Just a couple.
Now, before we begin, yes, this is the first State of the City address in maybe 90, 80 years. It's been quite a long time. I do hope that future mayors take that tradition and inform the city on an annual basis going forward. I think it's important, and I'm glad you all sat through it, even though I think most of you are here to see some of our next agenda items. But just don't tell me that in public, okay? We're going to move on now to a swearing-in ceremony. We got a swearing-in ceremony where the new Deputy Chief of Police, Tim Kugel, class of '92, and the new Deputy Fire Chief, Matt Fifield, will take the oath of office.
Please, and repeat after me. I, Timothy Kugel, do solemnly swear
I, Timothy Kugel, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so long as I shall remain
so long as I shall remain
a citizen thereof,
a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent upon me
as Deputy Chief of Police
as Deputy Chief of Police
for the City of Auburn,
for the City of Auburn,
according to said constitutions,
according to said constitutions,
the laws of this state,
the laws of this state,
and ordinances of the city.
and the ordinances of this city.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I won't betray my badge,
I will not betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character, or public trust.
my character, or public trust.
I'll have the courage to hold myself
I will have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable
and others accountable
for our actions.
for our actions.
I'll uphold the Constitution,
I will uphold the Constitution,
community,
community,
and agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations.
Dep Chief. Congratulations. He's proud.
If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Matthew Fifield, do solemnly swear
I, Matthew Fifield, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so long as I shall remain
so long as I shall remain
a citizen thereof,
a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
and I will faithfully discharge,
to the best of my abilities,
to my best of my abilities,
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent upon me
as Deputy Fire Chief
as Deputy Fire Chief
for the City of Auburn,
for the City of Auburn,
according to said constitutions,
according to said constitutions,
the laws of this state,
the laws of the state,
and ordinances of the city.
and the ordinance of the city.
Congratulations.
Bob, there's a coin for Matt from the mayor.
Hey, congratulations. Okay. Do us proud, huh?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Tim. Proud of you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's okay. That's all right. Don't you worry about that.
Congratulations. They wanted some family pictures?
Yeah, probably
I'd like
should.
to give it a minute. Deputy Chief, if y'all want to take a minute and get some pictures here in front, City Council will move out of the way. That way you get a better shot.
They can take it.
More than welcome to take a minute if you'd like. Chief, do you want family shots?
Do that?
Okay.
There you go.
Beautiful. Awesome. Very nice.
Forget it.
I know.
Awesome. Whole family? No whole family? Oops. Go ahead down. Nice. So good. It's over here. Get that. All the way back. Very carefully, Sharon. I was gonna say, I think I got everybody. On the other side. No, that's not really. I'm not gonna. I got all. Okay. Whoops. Right there. Liz. I already had the big ones out. Why are we even here, Brian? Where'd you go? Oh.
Those here, we have cake on the third floor for everybody. Oh, whoa, whoa, Chief, hold on. We see you sitting on taking so long, we thought we'd get you
Bring us a piece down.
Touche, Chief, touche.
Chief, you can bring the cake that's left over back down.
We'll be done before then. We'll be done. Okay. We're gonna be moving right along here. Next, we have under communications. We have representatives from the Auburn Business Development Corporation, ABDC, here to provide us with an update. Good evening. Thank you for waiting through. If you hurry it up, you can get some cake. Third floor, I hear.
It's going to be the fastest report on record when there's cake involved.
Bring some back.
Okay, good evening. My name is Michelle Richardson. I am the current president of the Auburn Business Development Corporation.
And my name is Bruce Ryu, and I live in Ward 5, and I am the vice president of the ABDC.
So we just wanted to take this opportunity today. I know we have been with you guys off and on a couple of times over the last few months. We're talking about a variety of things. Wanted to take this opportunity to just provide a little bit of background about who the ABDC is, what our goals and missions are, how they align with the cities, and how we hope to move forward and work together. I know when we had been here recently, there were some specific items that we were working on and didn't necessarily have the opportunity to share all of the history of who the ABDC is, where it came from, and its genesis story, if you will. This organization has been around, well, longer than I have. The original documents that I found in the files were from the early 1970s when it began. It's always been a 100% volunteer board of directors. Over the years, we've had help from a variety of different entities from a staffing perspective, most recently from the Growth Council. And we are now back to our full just board volunteer roles, providing all of those services ourselves with some outside help from an accountant. So the early 1970s, as an economic development corporation, as a way to provide some support to the city and in creative ways of being able to bring in new businesses, encourage more development, and walk hand in hand with things that might be a little more difficult for a municipal government to do, but are in the best interests of the city. So that's what we share. Is our goal is to encourage the development and make this a great place to live and work and play, if you will. So we have filled a variety of roles over the years, whether it was administering loan funds for new businesses that were starting up. That originally, I think, was in the 1980s. That was one of the functions of the ABDC. When the Growth Council came into being, that sort of transferred to them, and we moved more into industrial development. We built a spec building in very early 2000 that was sold to Gendron, and Gendron, I believe. They built the building for us, and then it was sold to CV Finer Foods. We have been a lender for some loan funds to start businesses down here in the Great Falls area to help facilitate that. And in the early 2000s, the goal between the ABDC and the city was really how can we bring in some more industrial development into the city? What do we need to make that happen? And that's really where the industrial parks came into play. So phase one was that spec building and the construction of Logistics Drive. And then when that was sold and moved on, phase two came into being, and that's the current Auburn Enterprise Center, which is up and ready for its first tenants. There's 8 lots in there, about just under 100 acres of industrially zoned space. The city is bringing in the high-speed broadband right to the beginning of the park, which increases its marketability, which is fantastic. And I think it really is going to be an amazing park once we can get the you know, it's always the hardest thing to do is to get that first person and building in there. So that's where we stand today. And once the AEC moves on and that project comes to its completion, we look forward to working with the city on what comes next. You know, what is the next focus? What's the next idea where we can partner and be of service to the city? And it could be in any number of things. And, you know, as a board, we're really trying to put together a plan of how we're going to move forward as an organization and how we move forward with the city to, you know, to make everybody's brighter tomorrow. So
I can remember back when I've been on the ABDC a long time, and I can remember back when I first joined, I was kind of told that the function of the ABDC is to be the private arm of the city, of City Hall. So if a client was going to put an addition on his building or move his, build a new building or expand his business in Auburn, and they went to the bank for some financing, and then they needed some additional financing to complete the project, and they would come and work with the Economic Development Department. If they were to just go through City Hall, all of their private financial business would become public record. So the ABDC kind of took care of that because they would provide the financial information for their business to us, and we would work with the city would work with us, we would get them their gap financing, the expansion would happen. So we were like the private arm of City Hall so that businesses could get more employees, could get bigger buildings and grow the tax base. And that's the way I understood my role to be as a board member in the ABDC. We were the private lending arm. Then that piece of it got taken away from us, and the Growth Council, they were doing the same thing, and the Lewiston Development Corporation was doing the same thing. So we get three entities all kind of competing for this customer to put their addition in our town. And so the Growth Council took over all of that fund mechanism, and they were handling it. So now the ABDC's got, really, we've got to find ourselves again. So we said, well, we've got a little bit of money, and then the city of Auburn donated a piece of land in the Kitty Hawk Industrial Park. Now, if we sell that, we put a spec building, we take our money, we put it on the donated land. Now we've got a great big building, and we can sell it. And we did. I was the president at that time. We sold it for about $850,000. So now we had no cash, and now we have $850,000 of cash in our coffers. We're doing pretty good. That Kitty Hawk Industrial Park had a 10-year lifespan, and it sold out in 5 years. It was mind-boggling how fast those lots were getting scoffed up. So in 5 years, the city of Auburn says, oh darn, we don't have any more, industrial land ready. But we've got some money, so let's buy some land and let's start the next industrial park. And that's how we kind of got to the point where we are now. And unfortunately, Army Corps of Engineers, EPA, it gets really expensive when you start doing these large parcels of land. And we purchased the land, and we did all the things with the city of Auburn that we had to do, and now the industrial park's ready to go. So as soon as we start selling it, we'll have another pool of money, and we will look to the city to say, what would you like us to do with it? It's not ours, it's ours. And that's how we look at it. I don't know if that's helpful to you at all.
It's a really good picture. I'll speak on behalf of the council. Let me just open up, if I could, to council. Do you have any questions or comment or questions about ABDC history, where we're at today? No?
No, I liked the history part of it because I was not aware of that. That was very helpful. And I like the idea of the partnering with the city.
I beg your pardon?
I like the idea of partnering with the city. That concept itself is good.
As far as we're concerned, when we sell out the industrial park, that money is yours, not
Okay.
ours. We're going to partner with you. We'd like to, be the administrators of it if we can, but it belongs to the city.
Well, I'm going to give you, I'm going to kind of repeat a challenge I just said in my State of the City address, which I think you might have seen, suffering through that one.
You did a good job, by the way.
Oh, thanks. It's hard to read. I went to Everett Little. But that was a joke. But you heard me talk about a marketing and advertising campaign. And, I mentioned ABDC as well as ABA. And I'd love to be able to know, and if you could go back to your board of directors and bring that challenge. If not, utilizing ABDC funds that you currently have available, because we understand it's tied up in the land. But going out to your member or other businesses within the, the greater Auburn area that could benefit from an advertising campaign and soliciting contributions, hopefully knowing that they could be matched with city funds in order to get the best possible return on everyone's investment. If you could take that concept back, feel free to reach out to myself or anyone here to help. It's still just a concept, but we'd love to work with someone, especially businesses who've done this, in order to iron it out and have a good plan.
Right, I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, the ABDC in the early 2000s was funded by a debenture program from local residents and local businesses that bought, in and essentially funded the initial, costs for the ABDC, and that worked. I think we're very open to how we move forward and what we do next. I mean, we didn't mention it, but our board right now is about 18 members. We're love to bring in some more. We're always recruiting. We have residents, we have business owners in Auburn, we have a variety of folks that really bring a lot of different views to the table, which is great, but we always want more voices around that table. So, I think all of those ideas are good ideas, and we'll certainly bring that back to our board, for further discussion and how we move forward, and
very good.
Keep the ideas coming, as will we.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else further, I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck on, and keep us posted if you can as you get closer to selling some of that property.
You got it.
Thank you. Next, under communication, we have an update from Karen Scammon from our assessing department. Mrs. Scammon, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, councilors, mayor, city manager.
Good evening.
I've been invited here tonight to just give you an update on what the assessing department has been up to. And so I hope that I'm not too long-winded. We've been up to a lot. As you probably already know, assessors are agents of the state, and as agents of the state, the assessing department throughout the whole year, and assessors throughout all of the municipalities, follow a strict calendar. We have very strict guidelines that we have to adhere to. We have very strict timelines that we have to adhere to, reports that have to be done. So we do have a set calendar with things that need to be done throughout the year. It all leads up to the commitment of taxes. Our taxes are committed in July, and once they're committed, we start all over again. There are projects that come up in between, obviously, that we add to that calendar every year. So I'm not going to go through, obviously, all of our monthly tasks, but I would like to update you on a few things. So we did commit taxes in July. Since we committed, we have had 26 residential abatement applications filed, 7 commercial, and 5 personal property. Abatements are filed, as you know, for a variety of reasons. It can be error in title, claims of overvaluation, an exemption that wasn't applied, a business that closed. But every single application that we get in, we have to review it, and we have to do research to determine whether it is a valid abatement application and it should be approved or denied. So all the abatements take a great deal of, well, some take a great deal of time and some are more cut and dry. some of those abatements that are granted are subsequently issued a supplemental tax bill. So, meaning if we have made an error in title, we will abate that property entirely, and then we have to supplement it and send them a supplemental tax bill. We give the information to the tax collector gives them a supplemental tax bill. So this year alone, since commitment in July, abatements were granted in the amount of a little over 41,000 tax dollars. 12 supplemental tax assessments were processed in the amount of a little over $92,000, and we had one special assessment that we assessed for demo and court costs for a property that the city took and demoed, and that was a little over $14,000. So all in all, we have a net gain of about $65,000 in tax dollars this abatement period. And our abatement period ended this past January 26th. So these numbers, we have only one appeal that is pending before the Board of Assessment Review, and it is an appeal that we initially obviously denied the abatement, and then we went to appeal. They were granted a continuance to prepare a little better for the appeal. So we are waiting for that one, but that's the only appeal that we have left on the books for this year. So we've done quite well this year with the abatements and supplementals and appeals. Next thing we've been working on are every month we receive the transfer docs from the state. Every property that transfers in the city has a transfer document attached, and the state sends us those once a month. So when those come in, we have to pull all of the deeds from the registry, and we have to match them to all of the transfer docs. It's a very time-consuming process. Actually, Joe does, would you like to talk about transfers a little bit? Because Joe's the first line on the transfer docs. They do go through all three of us, but he's the first in line. So if you want to just really quick go through the process of what you do.
Sure. Like as Karen indicated, we get transfer docs usually once a month. They're about 2 months behind, 2 to 3 months behind when we get them. So we, like for instance, we just processed November deeds, and that was, and you go through those. So you have two types of transfers. You have sales, and you have you know, transfers that aren't arm's length necessarily. They could be a family transfer, something that is you know, an estate that goes to the heirs of somebody. Those are generally straightforward, but there's part of the process is when we get each transfer, we have to review the deeds to make sure it matches the ownership on record, that the title is consistent with what transferred before, so that we know we're assessing the proper parcel. We look for things such as splits or merges or changes. So, and there are a number of sort of boxes that we have to check as we go through the transfers. Obviously, if someone no longer lives at a property, they would no longer be eligible for an exemption. So we have to make sure that we're properly updating the record. And then subsequently, whoever purchases the property may be eligible to transfer an exemption. And that's kind of a big deal because exemptions have become a big part of our valuation as exemptions evolve and the state increases the amount of exemptions. So that's very important, a dynamic of the processes. We look for errors, we look for problems with the deeds, and we look for land changes, and we update the record. And it also, as a kind of a parallel process, we're reviewing sales. We're looking for changes in the sales ratio, high or low. We look at different classes of properties, what's going on, say, with industrial properties or waterfront properties or, you know, typical single-family residences. So it's really kind of like herding cats. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of things you can miss in something as simple as a transfer. So that's in a nutshell.
And at the same time, when these transfers are being reviewed, Joe's sending out the verification survey, the sales survey. It's questions about the sale so that we can understand how the sale occurred, why the sale occurred, what were the circumstances of the sale. He sends out a change of mailing address form at the same time, and he sends out a homestead exemption application. So all of these things are sent to all of these new homeowners right off the bat at the same time. We have had 546 transfers since last April 1st. So it's very time consuming, and like I said, all three of us are going over them each time. Another ongoing task of the department that we have been working on are review of these applications. Veterans applications and homestead applications come in throughout the year on a daily basis. We have to review every application that comes in and qualify it. As of this January, we had received 48 veterans exemption applications. 43 of the applications have been processed and loaded in the CAMA system, and we have received 112 homestead applications since commitment. So about half of those have been processed. We did just implement a new procedure that we track our exemption applications with. In the past, we have had a few times, not very many, but enough, where taxpayers have said, you know, I sent in my application, why didn't I get my exemption? We didn't have the application, so in order to now track and make sure that we are acknowledging that we are receiving them, we are now sending out postcards every single time we receive an application. It has a tracking number on it. We are asking the taxpayers to keep this as a tracking number for any reference when you call, to make sure that you know we received it, we know that we have it. It's working out quite well. And applications are available. We've made them available on our website. We take them electronically. We also take paper copy. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the application process for exemptions that are out there. Starting in November, as you all know, we had a huge project that we started, the Taylor Pond project. I'm not going to go into that in huge detail because I'm sure that all of you are aware of it. Many of you attended the meetings that we had. That's our ongoing large project at the moment. Because of the weather, and I think because of the season that we started at the end of November, we have had only 12 inspections as of today. We have a couple more on the books for next week. We expected that, being the time of the year, and we also expect that inspections will pick up in the spring. 2-year project. We will keep everyone posted publicly on what's going on. So I just wanted to touch on that and let you know that's still ongoing. Permit inspections, we're doing permit inspections. We've had a record number of building permits this year. We have to review every building permit that comes into the city. We have to load them into our CAMA system. We have to go out and inspect these properties as the permits are being pulled for. That has been a huge part of our time. The three of us all go out and do these inspections. So that's a big chunk of work that we have been working on. And Caitlin, who kind of leads up our personal property section of the assessing department, has been working the months of September through December on the 801 forms. It's a reimbursement to business owners, a partial reimbursement of their taxes that they can claim from the state. However, they have to apply to us first. It's a very lengthy process. Caitlin processed 220 forms from September to December. They are all done. And now we're going to move on to the citywide canvas in personal property. That is our new, most recent project. It will start the beginning of February. That is a canvas that we need to do for all of the businesses for purposes of sending out a mailing for them to report their business assets to us for tax purposes. The Canvas is a really good time for us to be out there. What we do is, right now we have 1,093 businesses listed in our Canvas system. We're going to make up a list of these businesses. We're going to split it between the three of us. We're going to go out and canvass the city. We're going to look for new businesses. We're going to close some businesses. We're going to visit all of the new businesses that we have, go in and introduce ourselves, tell the people why we're there, what we do, explain to them about this Form 706 that's going to be coming in the mail that they really don't like to fill out, and I can't say that I blame them. But we will also explain to them that there is this reimbursement program and there is an exemption program. If you're eligible for either one of them, we're going to explain it to them. It connects us to the business community and lets them know that we're there, we can come to your business and help you fill out these forms. You can come into the office and fill out the forms with us. We'll help you in any way we can, and there are programs, like I said, for either reimbursement or exemption. That's going to take us, the Canvas takes us at least 2.5 weeks for all of us, the three of us, to go out and do this Canvas. We compile a new list of businesses, and that's where our mailing comes from, and it goes out around the end of, around mid-March. We'll get that mailing out, and those business asset forms will be back due April 15th. So we have a lot of projects ongoing right now. We have a lot of these things that, like I said, incrementally throughout the year, these have to be done at the same time every year. We throw a few other projects in the mix, and it keeps us pretty busy. So that, in a nutshell, is what we've been doing in the assessing department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a lot of work, and it's usually, and I understand that you're usually the, it's always hard to be the tax assessor in a city, or any community for that matter. I have heard some great positives, though, from residents about fairness, so that's always nice to hear.
Yes,
so thank you very much for your work on that. I'll turn it over to the council. Does anybody in the council have any specific questions? Councilor Zanya.
Just a comment that you going out to canvass all the businesses, I think, is a wonderful idea, and I wonder if it's possible or appropriate for the city to kind of piggyback on that in terms of having some communication from the city to the businesses, whether it's a welcome or the STAR program or something like that. Not to burden you with everything else that you're doing, but that personal interaction with these individual businesses is extremely valuable.
So basically turning into a touch point for information, info gathering, info disbursement?
Again, not to burden you with more to do. Maybe it's just handing them something.
Yep.
I don't know.
Mr. Manager?
Just a quick comment. That's a good suggestion, great idea. We're actually doing that, not to the extent that we'd like to, but Michael Chamings, the Economic Community Development Director, and I have gone out to meet some of the largest businesses in the community and the people that are running them. Also, the Economic Development Specialist, I know in the past, has gone out and met with businesses. We need to do more of that.
Good point. I mean, touch points are important. I know I'm doing 150 businesses for our 150th anniversary, and it takes a lot of work to dedicate yourself to visiting all those folks. But we should talk and have more conversations as your lead. When is your date for the business reach out, or business count, I'm sorry, survey? When are you going to start that?
We're going to start doing our business canvas probably end of February.
Let's have a conversation between now and then about using that as a touch point, even if this is a packet of info that maybe we could drop off without being, again, overburdensome. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You just touched pretty much what I was going to say. Too bad the city couldn't come up with its own packet, a folder or something. That way when you go to a business and check it out, you can, pass them the information. They can review it at their own leisure, and there'll be contact numbers and things in it that they can use to get a hold of whomever, whenever they need to.
Certainly.
They may not have that connection of knowing who to go to or where, to get the information.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments from the council? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening. I appreciate your time. We're now going to move into open session. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on the agenda tonight. Open this up to the first members of the public. Please, when you come, give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Nobody? Anybody? Anybody? Good, good, good. Thank you.
We're from the Crystal Spring Healing Alternatives medical store. We have one in Auburn and one in Lewiston. It's been brought to our attention that there's going to be a vote on the number of storefronts that there are in Auburn. I don't know about exactly where this is going to go, but well, it's under our understanding that there are 2 that are going to be accepted, and anybody else that had any type of a medical front is not going to be, permitted. But
if we could, please, thank you. Just for clarity, there's a procedural aspect, and then there's the ordinance. Before an ordinance even comes to the council for a vote, it'll be presented to us via workshop.
Okay.
Then at the next meeting, we'll have a first reading. If it passes, we'll have a second reading. Along the way, amendments can be made, changes can be made to that ordinance by the council. So there is a very long process. It's not just going to be a, hey, here we go, here it is, vote, good, done. So it's going to be it's going to be a deliberate process over time. But with that said, I'd like to turn over to the assistant city manager, if you could, if you'd like, who's been heading up the effort with the work group.
I would encourage you to come. We have a meeting on February 5th at 3:30 here at City Hall. It's in the community room. I encourage you to come and attend. That'll be the topic that we will be hitting. There's an internal process with staff on actually proposing some language. I can tell you that what you had just cited, even our proposed language isn't just for our 2 medical facilities. It's actually greater than that. But I think you'll see the language that we propose. There'll be a good process in that, and we encourage everyone to come and participate in that discussion.
So you're saying
February 5th,
okay.
3:30.
Absolutely. We'll bring a bunch of material for you guys to look over as well. And we have had great success in Lewiston. We do have a little bit more welcoming, more of a better establishment over there, just regarding the location mainly. But at the same time, we know that we can be a great asset to the city of Auburn, to its people, and to just that whole medical realm of it.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're going to get involved. So I encourage that. Okay, it's going to take a lot of people to make sure we craft this correctly. So thank you very much for your time.
Really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak tonight during our first open session? If not, I'm going to close the open session. We're going to move to unfinished business. We have a public hearing on the discontinuance of Niska Unit Street, and yes, it's still there. This is going to be the first reading was held actually on January 7th. Tonight is a public hearing only. We will not be voting on this again tonight. Second reading and final vote will be at the second meeting in February, so one more time after this. Is there any, do we have anybody, actually, yeah, do we have any comments from the public on the closure of Niska Unit Street? I'm sorry. None? None being? Okay, we're going to move on to new business. We have a public hearing and an order to approve the liquor license and special amusement permit for SXE LLC, doing business as Side by Each Brewing Company, located at 1110 Minot Avenue. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
So move.
Second.
Motion from Councillor Hayes, second from Councillor Walker. I'm going to open this up to public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak about this project? I see 2 right here in the second row to my right who I'd love to have come up to the table so I could ask them some very poignant questions. I knew you would rise to the challenge.
Thank you for your time.
First and foremost, could you just take a minute and give us an update on open date, how things are progressing?
This is getting to be a regular occurrence, opening date. It's looking like middle of February. Construction's just about finished, and we have a few projects to wrap up on our own, but getting close.
I'm sorry, before you could you give your names to the council and the public, please?
Ben Lowe.
My name is Matt Johannes.
Okay. Councilors, any questions of the proprietors of Side by Each? Councilor Lasagna?
I want to commend you for proactively signing up to do seller-server training, which is really important, and it sounds, from what I've heard, that you guys have been, as I said, very proactive about it, and that's extremely appreciated in the community. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's something that we have a responsibility not only to what we're doing, but also to the community as well, and we need to definitely look out for those.
For sure.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to bring this back to the council right now for debate and a vote. Council, at this time, I'd like to bring it back for debate. Is there any debate at this time or discussion on whether or not to approve or disapprove this license? None? I'm going to open up to the, okay, if that's the case. We're going to bring this back to a vote. I'm going to ask for a vote by show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? Denied? None being? It's approved 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Good luck on your open, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Okay, we have several, we're going to be moving on now. We have several board and committee appointments. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Hold on. I have a motion from Councilor Gary.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Understood.
Mr. Mayor, thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. The appointment committee met on January 16th to review all applications that were turned in for consideration and have made the following nominations. On order 10-01282019, appointing Brian Carrier as a full member of the Planning Board with a term expiration of 1/1/2020. On order 11-01282019, appointing Stephen Martelli as a full member of the Planning Board with a term expiration of 1/1/2022. On order 12-01282019, appointing Paula Curtis Everett to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term expiration of 10/1/2019. On order 13-01282019, appointing Michael Thurston to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term expiration of 10/1/2019. On order 14-01282019, reappointing Dana Staples to the Complete Streets Committee with a term expiration of 1/1/2022. On order 15-01282019, appointing R. Wayne Wirtz as a member of the LA 911 Committee with a term expiration of 1/1/2022. On order 16-01282019, reappointing.
That's a separate order.
Sorry about that. I got on a roll and kind of overshot. Sorry about that.
Should have let her go. She might appoint all of us to something else too. Maybe great. I have a motion for Councilor Gary. Thank you very much for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Before we move on, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to note that I noticed item 9G, which was a sewer district appointment of Charlie Sheehan, and I didn't notice it as one of the orders on the list. Is there any reason for that?
Because we hadn't posted those positions, the committee felt that we should hold off until our next meeting.
I see. Okay, so it was listed on the agenda but not in the packet for that reason.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I seconded it.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary and a second from Councilor Fournier. I'm going to open this up to public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Is there any debate? No? I'm going to ask for a vote by show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? None being. Order passes 7-0. Next is an order to appoint Karen Scammon as Auburn City Assessor with a term expiring on January 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Young, and a second from Councilor Walker. Open up to the public for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on the nomination of Karen Scammon? None being, I'm going to bring it back to the council for debate. Is there any debate from the council on this? None being, I'm going to bring it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? None being? Order passes 7-0. We're going to move on to reports. Mayor's report. Well, you just heard me speak for about 11 and a half minutes. I'm not sure what the final tally was, so I'm going to skip my report for tonight.
11 minutes and 45 seconds.
Of course, you were counting. Yes. I'm going to move on to City Council report, starting with Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many councilors in the public knows, that Councilor Walker and I both co-chair the Age-Friendly Committee. In regards to the email that I sent out dealing with the survey, the survey came about as a needs assessment to assess where we are as a community dealing with our more mature residents, 50 and above, or basically any physically challenged individual. The document that you all received, it was taken partially or mostly from AARP, and it's the same type of survey that most of the age-friendly communities have used in the past. I only changed a couple of things. Granted, I know it's a little long, but we need to be thorough. The document is basically an internal working mechanism for the Age-Friendly Committee. It's to help us to be able to identify the current and future needs of Auburn residents and the visitors that come to the city. The reason it was sent to you was so that you could see what type of questions, if there was something that you didn't like the wording of or wanted to be added or taken off, you were given the opportunity. This was a similar document that we had brought to, or I had brought to the Age-Friendly, since that was my committee assignment back a couple months ago. So it has changed. The good assistant city manager, he had a document with similar questions, maybe asked a little different, and we as a committee looked at it, reviewed it, and tried to pare it down between the two. Then it was given to office staff, and they too went through it. So basically, the way it is written is to help us to apply for grants for AARP to push forward our work that we need to accomplish or want to do to make our city better. Also, the information gathered will be used if we need to go to CDBG and HUD to fill out any other type of forms to request funds in future years. That is the reason for it. It's internal. As a courtesy, once we get the fine-tuned document, we will send it out to the committee. Our intent is to, and we've got an application to apply for AARP for funding, because our intent, or at least mine was not to hit the council up for money for funding for the surveys. We knew as a committee that not every person, resident, has a computer. The survey was going to be put, or is going to be put once it's finalized, on the website for anyone that would like to click on it to fill it out. We also intend to make hard copies to be taken around to all the senior housing and senior citizen group and any other place where the public is going to gather, to hand these out, to have them fill out, and to use that statistical information. It has little to do, sort of, with what's going on with the senior center and the rec department. This is totally independent. I'm not going to say that some of the information garnished won't help us as a group to work with and not overrun the recreation department and their senior program. What we're trying to do is to complement what the city is doing and the rec department through their senior center. Recognizing they can't do everything, we can't do everything neither. We're working as a team to try to fill in the gaps that have been created through the systems to make sure that all citizens of residents of Auburn has the tools they need to find the information they need to help them become more active part of our community. As time has gone on, more and more people with a physical challenge are coming out amongst our community. We need to adapt to make them feel comfortable and wanted. Too many years in the past that if you had a physical or any form of a disability, you didn't go anywhere. Times have changed. People aren't put in the closet. They come out, they want to be active. So this survey is trying to help us to smooth the rough edges. Also, the City of Auburn is trying to promote a more walkable downtown and areas within the city. So that's what we're trying to do with this survey.
Thank you. Councilor Lasagna?
There were a number of meetings these last couple of weeks and some to come. The Ag Committee met last Tuesday, the Mayor's Ag Committee, and as he mentioned in his State of the City report, that there'll be an ordinance that will come out at some point, and some other work that will result from that, including some type of an Ag Commission or an advisory commission. On Wednesday of last week, the School Building Committee had a public forum to get feedback from the community about the sort of the most wide-ranging proposal for the school, and it was very well attended, and there was a lot of really good positive energy around that. It's still a process. The Department of Education has a lot to say about what we can do. On Thursday, some of us attended the chamber dinner, which was entertaining to see everybody. This coming week, on Wednesday, the Citizens Advisory Committee will be meeting to talk about where we are in the role of the CDBG funding. And on Thursday of this week, and that's at 6 o'clock here, on Thursday this week will be the final meeting of the strategic planning subcommittees before it goes to the finance subcommittee. And the strategic planning steering committee continues to meet on a regular basis to be able to help guide the process, and we'll continue to work to make sure that we bring together all the resources, information that has been provided. And it's been a really exciting, positive experience.
Councilor Hayes.
Well, the news was actually broken with respect to the airport and Elite being the tenant for the hangar there. So they have taken possession as of the 15th, and they are moving in. We probably won't see any actual planes arriving until probably into March. There will be activity there. They do have some projects where they'll be working on different parts of aircraft, but be probably trucked in, trucked out. But kind of interested to know when we may see the first flight in.
Very much so, actually. And if we could, and if it's possible, to follow up with Rick and Betty Ann, just to see, I'd like to see a little bit more demographic data on their employees. How many people are moving into the area from, let's say, out of region, plus 50 miles away? Are we getting folks moving in from out of state to fill these jobs there, specialty jobs? Or are they actually capturing workforce that are local? I think that will help with some of our planning process with regards to housing, attraction and so forth, and kind of see where things fall. So that would be great to know, some great data.
Mr. Mayor, no report tonight.
How about the fact that you were absent from the trustee meeting because you're having a granddaughter?
Well, yeah, but I didn't want to.
So I'd like to take a moment and call out Councilor Titus for being a brand new grampy. So,
woman in my life.
There's a new women in counselor title. This is life. Yes, yes. Congratulations,
Thank
Counselor. Moving along, Counselor Fournier.
A couple of the committees were already reported on. Counselor Lasagna's on the two of the same ones that I'm on, so that I won't repeat. But we have not had a school committee meeting yet, nor the library, so that will be coming up. So I cannot report on anything at this time.
Very good. Counselor Walker.
Yeah, one important one. Tomorrow night at Rowley's Diner, 6 o'clock, we will have the city manager there to talk about our great city and a lot of things that we're doing, we're moving on with. I know a lot of people can't make it here, and the manager doesn't always have time to put out a half-hour report, so come on down to Rowley's, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, and listen to our great city manager.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Young.
Yes, say a little bit about the Edward Little building. Most of us were there, and some of us had sticker shock, and but it's not a final figure yet, and some of the money is going to be fundraising, but I haven't seen any fundraising being done yet. But I think at some point we'd like to have some discussion about how we might be soften the blow on how much we're going to be able to help out and let them know how much they're going to have to raise. Because we all want to have a nice high school and the best in the region, right? But we need to, be frank about this and see what we need to do to have it happen.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager who's going to comment on that very thing, kind of latent breaking news, so to speak. So, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, as you know, from the workshop held earlier, the FY20 budget process is underway, and the department directors and their staff are working on their budgets for the CIP and the operating budget. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as we move forward. I also want to mention the birthday celebration that's taking place on February 22nd as part of our 150th anniversary celebrations that are taking place. New Year's event was great. The birthday celebration will be at 25 locations as of today. There will be cakes at each of those locations. We expect that may expand. If you want more information, go to auburn150.com and you can find out all you want to know about those birthday celebrations. On the Winterfest that was recently held, my compliments to the staff who are involved in that. I think that the weather didn't help us with what we did in terms of the event for the children. Unfortunately, the ice bar and live music went well. I was there for a little while, and was pleased to see so many people attend. And also the event in New Auburn, I understand, went over very well, which is great. Also, just a reminder, the next council meeting is next Monday, and there will be a report on tax-acquired properties from Jody DeRisco, the Executive Assistant City Manager's Office, as well as other items. And I also want to invite the council on behalf of the school superintendent, Katie Grondin, to a joint workshop with the school committee on Wednesday, February 7th at 6 p.m. The mayor and I spoke about that earlier today, and just so happened that Katie came down later on and spoke to me, and we were all looking around wondering if she was eavesdropping to the conversation. I'm sure she's not. It was just good timing. Great minds think alike. How's that? And on the question about fundraising with the new high school project, there are discussions ongoing about that in terms of how we would approach that. Mayor and I have been involved in some conversations with the school committee chairman and also the superintendent of schools about the best way to approach that. And Katie has been reaching out to some folks who have done that in the past. So I think both the mayor and I are pleased that this is being worked on. We expect to hear more in the near future. I also want to mention that the Lewis and Auburn Transit Committee has sent a survey to businesses and employees in an effort to try and see if there are businesses that would be interested in participating in the transit system. and whether they have employees that would like to do that. We're trying to look at the transit system as an economic development tool. I think in the past it hasn't been viewed as that, but I believe that it is important to the community in terms of economic development, workforce development, so we're trying to make that connection. And lastly, but not least, on the strategic plan, I appreciate what Councilor Lasagna was saying, and I want to ask the Assistant City Manager, Phil Kroll, if he would give an update on the strategic planning process and the work that's being done.
Sure. So our group is moving along very well. We have 2 committees that have been meeting at the same time, and that's our growth and quality subcommittees. Their final meeting is scheduled for this Thursday here at the City Hall at 6 p.m. The final meeting will be focusing on priorities. We've been working through all the goals and objectives and action steps. So our priorities will be developed at this next meeting. That work will then go to the Strategic Planning Committee, which will meet on February 12th here at Auburn Hall. They'll begin reviewing the work that's done by the previous 2 committees, start forming that, preparing a report for the Investment Subcommittee, which will begin their work on February 28th.
Okay. Thank you very much for the updates. We're going to be moving along to our financial update.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilor Walker.
I want to piggyback on the manager's talk about the Winter Fest for a minute, please. I want to say thank you to Public Works and all the help that they gave us this weekend. If it wasn't for them coming out and sending their manpower out to flood the rink that's at Sherwood Heights, and to work with myself and the volunteers that help us with the United New Auburn Association, the event in New Auburn wouldn't have happened. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that without public service, Public Works coming out and helping us, they had to work overtime as well to get this done. And it was a great effort by everybody. We pulled it off. It was darn cold out there, but we had plenty of hot chocolate. We had so many cookies that were coming out of our ears from McDonald's, but the kids loved them all there the whole time they were there. But we had over 200 people show up there and, you know, weathered through the cold, sliding down the hill that was faster than the speeding bullet with plenty of ice. But everybody enjoyed it, and I just wanted everyone to know, this year Public Works was beside us through the whole thing, and so was the Recreation Department working with us. So, you know, without the city being part of these functions, even though the private organizations are out there volunteering as well, it takes a team throughout the whole city to pull this off, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew it, and thank you to all your help, Dan, and your department.
Councilor Walker went down on a toboggan.
Yeah.
We got the photos.
You had the photos?
We have the photos.
Okay, that's great. We need that viability there. Okay, we're going to move along to the finance report. Ms. Eastman, are we going to make payroll?
Yes, we'll make payroll.
Very good. Everything else is easy.
You have your December financial report. We are halfway through the fiscal year already, and things are looking good. Our current revenues are at 56.13%, which the accounts that are noteworthy are current year property taxes are at 57.62%. Excise tax continues to outpace us. We're 3.79% above projections at the end of December, and revenue sharing is at 50.05. So that's the first time in quite a few years that we've actually, our revenue sharing is where it belongs. And on the expenditure side, we're at 55.5%, which is, we're actually a little less than we were at this time last year. I would entertain any questions if anyone has.
Councilor Titus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just had a couple of quick ones, Jill. On the city manager's budget, I've asked this before, and so I'm just asking again, could I possibly get a breakdown showing the legal expenses? I know that's in that manager's budget. and if I could just get a copy of what that is. I know I miss it since it was itemized on our balance sheet.
We can do that. My apologies on not getting that to you. We're in good shape, though.
I'm sure we are.
I tell you,
Yep.
we are in really good shape.
Yep, I just kind of I like seeing it, and now that it's there, I just, I could just see it before.
Do you want, Andy, do you want a detail or just a?
I just want to know what we forecasted and where we are
With the,
year-to-date
okay,
with legal
because I
expenses.
did split that out. So it was underneath, all under one account, and I split out the legal, so
Okay.
I will just print you a report
And that would
tomorrow.
include any contracts that we have, like, I don't know if we still are continuing to have a monthly contract with a legal firm, or are we still doing that?
You're still working with Michael Malloy.
Yes, I mean, so that would include that plus any of the outside expenses as well?
Yes.
Yes, terrific. The other question I have is, it looks like debt service. Is that because we're really caught up in our bond payments and all that, or we still have a half a year left and I thought I said 91%?
Yes, it is. It's always like that. Debt service is due in 2 installments, and we pay the principal in September, principal plus interest, and then in March, we pay interest only. So the biggest portion of that comes out in September.
So we should be on track based on what you're thinking, we should be on track?
Oh, yeah,
for the year?
it's perfect.
Just don't want to, pay more than we have to. Then the last couple of questions relates to the special revenue accounts. And just as a point of information, I know you've explained this before, but when I see some of them that are in the negative, I just want to, again, have an explanation. I look at like Homeland Security started out in a negative. We had some income, some distribution, and then we're still in the negative there. And also, I also wanted to question on the EDI grant is showing negative, and I know there's a reason for that, but I just wanted an explanation on those two.
Generally, on grants, we have to pay first and then get reimbursed.
And the EDI grant has to do with ABDC, correct?
Yes, it does.
So we got reimbursed
It has
for
to
that.
do with the industrial park.
Right, the industrial park, and we've already got that money, that EDI grant money, right?
Yes.
So it's showing like a negative, that's why I wondered why it would still show a negative 1.484 million.
That was the city's portion of that, which was to be made up with if we
Okay,
sell
that's
any
supposed
of
to be
the-
repaid to us once the lot starts
Sell
selling, so that'll
properties.
come back to us. That's 1.4 that's waiting to come back, okay. And then the Homeland Security one that, like I said, started out in the red, had some income and then distribution, and then ended up right now in the red. Is that just how it always is? We're always kind of behind
Well,
on that?
we're just behind as far as in the billing. We got the money in after the end of the year, and then they've had this year's expenditures, which we haven't been reimbursed for yet.
Okay, so that will get there. Great, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments? None being? I'd like to entertain a motion right now to accept the finance report.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilor Zani and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Opposed? None being? It's accepted. Vote 7-0. Open this up to the second and last open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. I would like to ask you to state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody, any members of the public that would like to speak? Going twice, going last, okay. I'm now going to close the open session. Executive session, none. At this point, I would like to entertain a motion, excuse me, before I do that, just one more comment. Our next meeting will be Monday night, okay? Because of the holiday, we are kind of off kilter a little bit. So Monday will be our next city council meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Fournier, second from Councilor Walker. All of those in favor by voice vote, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Ayes have it.